Wait. Is this breaking news?
That's it. You gotta do nothing else, and you will start significantly losing weight. I think what's so fascinating about it, like the one thing that you found incredibly fascinating.
Can you think of anything else that people are putting in their body and they're actually losing weight?
Right. So if you have metabolic syndrome, over time, the likelihood of you having a heart attack is very high. Of you having a stroke, of you developing type 2 diabetes is very, very, very high.
It's like, how do we reconcile that responsibility? Because on one hand, we do need to take personal responsibility of our health, and there is no way around that. But on the other hand, we're, at least in the United States, we're looking at a healthcare system that does virtually nothing that's preventative, and it is all just putting Band-Aids on gunshot wounds.
Right. So it's both taking like shots at the current medical system, but it's also taking shots at human being to go, hey, like you have the responsibility for your health, because that's one area of life that we have control over, right? Which is our health, wealth, and our happiness.
You know, people have free will and they've got to make their own decisions. But at what point? What do you think would need to be the catalyst to change?
That's a very good question.
Oh man, you got me. All right, this is going to be a special episode where I sit down with Muhammad Malik. And Muhammad Malik has got a really interesting, fascinating story because not only is he someone who's been in the health game for a while, he's coached over 4,000 different people to transformations, but he's someone who's at a very pivotal point in his life and his career where he's really been lately taking a deep dive into the longevity game. Because when you talk to a lot of weight loss coaches and transformation coaches, you know, like the kind of guys that you'll find on Instagram, they're most interested in like, hey, I'm going to help somebody lose 20 pounds in the next 30 days, or I'm going to help them lose, 50 pounds in the next 12 months. And that's all great. And there's obviously an important place for that. But what Muhammad has been jumping into more recently over the last year or so is longevity, and specifically, how can we do the work now? How can we find the resources now today while our bodies are in great shape so that we can be in even better shape in our 60s and our 70s and our 80s and our 90s and maybe 100 and beyond. So when we talk about in this episode things like blood sugar monitors, it's very important right now, but it's also playing an important role for our longevity. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this awesome conversation that I had with Muhammad Malik. Yeah, man, anytime when we would do group coaching calls, I would always brew tea, and that felt like the vibe today. So
I like it. What's the flavor of that tea? What do you
don't know the flavor, but it's like cinnamon something, but I do know the quote, and that's what's most important. It says, "No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted."
Oh man!
Bonus points if you can tell me who that quote is from.
Probably Nelson Mandela or something.
No, it's Aesop. I think that's Aesop Rocky's cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good to know. It's kind of like fortune cookies. I think teas are like the, I don't want to say the hipster version of fortune cookies, but they're kind of the, they're the yogis version of fortune cookies, where you got the quotes, you feel good. I'd rather just have both, a tea and a fortune cookie.
Yeah, man. I did some cookies in this right now.
We'll go for it.
Yeah. That'd be a good business, actually. Just making fortune cookies and just putting jacked up fortunes in there.
Or you put really motivational quotes so people are excited to open.
You could, but I don't think that's as fun.
Awesome. Well, sweet Trevor, what are we talking about today, man? What do we got on the palette?
I think, man, I know you brought some good stuff for us today. I've got some notes right here as well, so I'm kind of excited to dive in. But
sweet deal.
The fun part about this is we didn't exchange any notes, so I have no idea what knowledge bombs you're going to drop on me today.
Oh man,
kind of nervous.
I'm going to be talking. Yeah, I'm talking about metabolic syndrome. So
okay, you
want to kick us off, or
man, hit me.
Go ahead.
Tell me all about what do I need to know about metabolic syndrome.
Oh man. Okay, so a lot of this reference is from Peter Attia, because I think Peter Attia is a super awesome human being, and he's just got this process on longevity and how to live a more meaningful life, which is around like improving your quality of life and actually doing it from more of a preventative side of things rather than getting to the doctor when you actually have problems, when you could actually have been resolving it like 10 years ago if you were proactive, right? So it's both taking like shots at the current medical system, but it's also taking shots at human being to go, hey, like you have the responsibility for your health, because that's one area of life that we have control over, right? Which is our health, wealth, and our happiness. And if we're not planting the seeds of doing it sooner, then it doesn't lead to good outcomes later in the future. So long story short, in the 60s, there was a physician who started noticing this pattern that every person that would have any cardiovascular issue or have heart attacks or anything of that sort, they all followed, or everybody had these certain conditions, right? And I'll kind of describe all those. So metabolic syndrome is what that person, he called it syndrome X, which later became metabolic syndrome. And the X in metabolic syndrome was actually insulin. So what metabolic syndrome is, it's a cluster of conditions that increase your risk of heart disease, right? So if you have metabolic syndrome, over time, the likelihood of you having a heart attack is very high, of you having a stroke, of you developing type 2 diabetes is very, very, very high. And what metabolic syndrome is linked to, it's being overweight, being obese, not being active, and your body not properly responding to insulin.
Okay, so help me out here. Explain metabolic syndrome to me like I'm in second grade, because, I mean, you know.
Okay, so if you're in second grade, metabolic syndrome is, let's see, I'm trying to like dumb down conditions. How do you say conditions? Okay, I'm just gonna keep it conditions. Metabolic syndrome is a series of conditions that happen, or like things that happen to you, that result, when those things happen, your ability to develop heart issues increases.
Right, but like, is this a syndrome that I'm like gonna catch on the playground? You know, am I gonna catch this when I'm on the city bus? Like, how am I getting metabolic syndrome?
Oh, dude, you're totally gonna catch it on the city bus. No, I'm just joking.
Well, good. I don't do public transportation, so.
A lot of this is just like it's the rise. Like I don't know the statistic, but the rise of metabolic diseases is extremely high in like our current age. And metabolic syndrome is a result of, like, you don't catch it from anything. It's because of your lifestyle issues, right? And so the criteria, so I'll give you the criteria so it'll better understand. If you have high blood pressure, if your triglycerides are high, right, which is your lipid profiles and stuff like that. If you have low HDL, which is the happy density lipoprotein or high density lipoprotein. If your belly fat for men is over 40 inches, or for women it's over 35 inches, and then your blood glucose levels are elevated, your fasted glucose levels are elevated. If you have 3 out of the 5 conditions of those conditions, you have metabolic syndrome. Now, my argument...
Would you say then that the diagnosis of metabolic syndrome is a little bit more subjective than objective?
Correct.
Okay.
Because in order to have metabolic syndrome, you must meet three out of the 5 criteria.
Sure.
But the problem is, even if you meet 1 out of the 5 criteria, you're still, like, your chances of having heart issues increases significantly.
So each one of those would be like a multiplier, basically. Like, you were just that much more likely to have issues down the line.
Exactly. If you're like, okay, I have a lifespan of 30 years, which now just goes down to 20, 10, the more kind of strikes that you have, right? Just for simplistic math sake. So, and anyone with these conditions, it puts anybody at like risk of developing CVD, which is coronary heart disease, right? Which is like no bueno. Like, is that because like 73% of people die? I think it's almost like, I think 2021, there's 21 million people that died of heart issues or heart disease. That's 21 million people, dude. That's insane.
Is that just in the U.S. or is that worldwide?
That's worldwide.
Okay, wow.
Yet all of it is preventable.
Well, and that's, you said something earlier about, you know, I think you took like a very small shot at the medical system, a much smaller and more respectful one that I would have taken. But I'm curious, like, how do we reconcile that responsibility? Because on one hand, I mean, I have a feeling I know your answer in that we do need to take personal responsibility of our health, and there is no way around that. But on the other hand, we're, at least in the United States, we're looking at a healthcare system that does virtually nothing that's preventative, and it is all just putting Band-Aids on gunshot wounds. Yeah. So how do we reconcile that?
It's kind of like somebody's like blood sugar can be, I believe, like the unhealthy range. I'll tell you, like, in order to have an elevated blood sugar, it has to be 110 milligrams, over 110 milligrams per deciliter. But if your blood glucose level stays above 100 grams per deciliter, like that's not good. Your body's developing, like you have the chance of developing insulin resistance. So to answer your question about like the current medical system, I think it's all about let's treat the issue when it happens versus let's actually switch the focus to how can we prevent that thing from actually happening in the first place. Now, part of that, I think, I'm not going to put a lot of ownership on the medical system. It's because, and again, it depends on where we're talking about in the medical system, right? Are you talking about general practitioners or are you talking about being in the ER, right? Their job is to help people.
Sure.
But a general practitioner, I mean, they're always telling people to, hey, you should lose weight. Hey, you should take care of your health. Hey, you should do this, right? But at the end of the day, like there's only so, like you and I, when we worked with clients, we can't lose the weight for them. I mean, we can tell them to eat, we can tell them to do the work. Yeah. We can't really do the work. So in essence, to really blame the medical system.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity to pause too before, because that is something I want to ask more questions on, but yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to pause and say, you know, we love our healthcare providers. We're very thankful for the jobs they do and the work they do. I don't think even my question is a reflection on those people.
No, not at all.
That said, I think there are some very serious issues in how healthcare as a whole is constructed. And truthfully, I think the answer to that is so far beyond my pay grade that that's not something we're going to solve today. But I don't know. I'm curious because, you know, people have free will and they've got to make their own decisions. But at what point, what do you think would need to be the catalyst to change our healthcare system to the point where we do start looking at things from a perspective of preventative medicine, where that lens changes?
It's very interesting, man. To be completely honest with you, I don't know. Right? I'm not I've always been in the preventative, like both of us have just been in the preventative care side of things. And so, like, I don't remember the last time I went to my general practitioner. I was about to make an appointment today because I want to go see a cardiologist to get a cardioangiogram to make sure that I can see what's going on with my arterial health. But to be quite honest, I don't know the answer to that question. I think the question that comes to mind, because I'm a big believer in self-leadership and self-ownership, would be the fact that we have to be the ones that get educated about our own health, because health is the fundamental currency for life, right? Like we live as if like our jobs are more important or X, Y, and Z is more important. But when you lose your health, you're freaking gone. Like you're like not even in this world, right? Yeah. And so to say that, like, I think the change is going to start with us, is us realizing we as people, as taking like owners of our own body to go, hey, this is what I need to do to get healthy. And then I need to then go to my doctor and say that, hey, I need this test, or I need to be put on statins because I got a blood test. Because now you don't need to go to a doctor to get a blood test. I think most people just are not educated at that point.
Yeah.
And we just need to provide people with more education, which is ultimately our goal with health, right? Helping people live a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, it makes me think too, there's a lot of things in regards to health that people really are just one step away from, but they either don't know what that step is, or they're not consistently taking that step. I mean, you talk about going and getting blood work, and I think it's true. A lot of people don't realize that they can go to the Quest down the road for them and get blood work for under $100 and get a complete metabolic panel, which is going to have everything they possibly need. And that's not something you even need your doctor's permission to do. Because
no, it's like almost 100, 110, 120 bucks.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah, and most people, at least in the United States, are going to have insurance that's going to cover it anyways, which is another step. But yeah, I think it's a lot of times you're just one step away from answers that, you know, you just have to be just curious enough to go find them, or just motivated to go find them. So it's interesting. Did I tell you the story about when I couldn't walk for like a full day?
No, dude. How was that?
Oh man.
Was that when you were doing deadlifts last time? Is that what it was?
Hey, don't out me. I was going to tell a better story. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, I was in my garage. I was just kind of getting back into working out after, gosh, it'd probably been 2 full years since I'd done anything consistently. And, you know, I'm in my garage thinking, you know, I'm just as strong as I've ever been. You know, I'm that guy. I mean, I'm in my 20s. I'm a beast. And, you know, I probably had 225 on the bar, and I've deadlifted 500 pounds in my life. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to start warming up. 2 reps real quick. Second rep on my way down, I was like, whoa, okay. I go to pull it up and like literally nothing happened. And I mean, I think everybody that goes to the gym has maybe had a moment where it's like, all right, something didn't feel right, shake it off, whatever. And I was sore the rest of the day. I woke up the next day and I physically could not get my body out of bed. I called my wife like it was 911 and I was like, hey, can you just like roll me off this bed right now and see if I can stand up? But the reason I tell the story is because you said something that made a lot of sense. Our health is the currency. We have nothing if we don't have our health. If we, I mean, we can accumulate all this money, we can accumulate all these worldly possessions. If you're not alive, who cares? I mean, do you have any idea what Charlie Munger's net worth was?
No, I mean, his net worth, like, I mean, obviously, Berkshire Hathaway is worth like $2 or $3 billion.
Berkshire is like probably a $500 billion company, and he had a good chunk of that. Yeah. It doesn't matter. He's not here to enjoy it anymore. Right, and he lived a great life. He lived to be 99 years old, but I guarantee he would trade all of that for one more day. And he can't. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just such a it stinks that we are often reminded by that, by either going through a tough experience or it just being too late.
Yeah. Because then it's like then what you said about putting Band-Aids on a problem that you can't put Band-Aids on.
That's not what I said.
Because the Band-Aid eventually is going to peel off.
I said Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Get my quote right.
Band-Aid on, there you go. Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, right? Like, when you go to your doctor and you're like, hey, I've had a stroke. Well, at that point, there's no going back, right? You can get a stent. You could start taking statins at that point, but damage has kind of been done. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's just like risk mitigation. And you're just putting one Band-Aid after the other until you just bleed out.
Yeah. But here, I think this is the heartwarming part about this. 99% of people that will ever listen to this, whether that's 2 people or 2,000 people, are not in that position yet. They're still pre-gunshot wound. But you've got to make those changes right now, because once you've got the gunshot wound, it is too late. Like, go do your life-saving measures. But at that point, it is enjoying your last few moments, not living an awesome life. And that is, I think, what I'm constantly trying to tell myself and also clients and friends and family. It's deal with the hard stuff now, because it is only going to get harder.
Yeah, because like there's a differentiation between like fast death and slow death, right? And so fast death is, let's say, God forbid, you're driving in a car and you get in a crash and then you die, right? That's fast death. It happened instantaneously. You don't know what's going on. But slow death, that's the worst kind of death, right? And that's like slow death from, hey, I have metabolic syndrome and I'm developing type 2 diabetes, and now I have to get my feet amputated because I lack the blood flow because of the blood pressure and the other issues that came along with it, or cardiovascular issues that I have now, which I need to get a bypass, or I'm not going to survive, right? Or I develop cancer, because a lot of what you consume and metabolic syndrome, now they're linking to people developing cancer in a later age, or neurodegenerative disease, right? Alzheimer's or anything of that sort. So all of these things you could get tested for, you can figure out where you're at and what you need to start doing now to either prevent them from happening, or if you're like, hey, genetically, I'm just disposed to this, which is fine. Now, how do I actually elongate my life and prevent that from happening sooner?
Great. So second grade Trevor back. What are those things? Like, what are the 2, 3, 4, 5, however many things that I should be doing today to get that longevity?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think I'm going to just lean into the metabolic syndrome. Otherwise, we're just going to have a laundry list of things. I think when it comes to metabolic syndrome, like the easiest thing that a lot of people can do is really just manage their blood sugar and manage their insulin, right? Because you don't want to get to a point where you're insulin resistant. And so what insulin is, I'm going to describe it to second grade Trevor. Insulin is a hormone in our body that's produced by something called the pancreas, right? And the job of the insulin is to help you regulate your blood sugar. And what that means is that insulin is kind of like the key, because in order for your body to function, you need energy, right? And energy comes in the form of sugar or glucose. And so when insulin is released inside of the body, when you eat something, let's say a donut, then your body uses that energy as fuel.
And let me pause you really quick too. Our body's going to break down just about everything we consume into simple sugars. Because I think a lot of people
Correct.
hear donut and they think like table sugar, they think crappy sugars. But even if you go eat
Everything.
a piece of broccoli, your body's eventually going to break
Correct.
that down into sugar.
Yeah, everything's getting broken down.
So it's not.
right?
So we're not talking like the thing to avoid, like sugar's bad. We're just talking about a natural process that your body has.
Exactly, right? And so, because once the insulin is broken down, glucose is then used as energy inside of your body, and and whatever your body cannot break down, right, it remains in the bloodstream, right? And that's not healthy either, because if you have a certain amount of blood sugar in the bloodstream, over time, that's what actually leads to your body saying, hey, I can't produce more insulin, right? Because I've been producing insulin, it's not working, and your body just, in a sense, shuts down, and that's where you develop insulin resistant, where your cells don't respond to insulin as well, which is like a horrible place to be in. That's when you actually start developing like type 2 diabetes, where you actually have to have insulin administered to you, which is like not fun, right? Sure. Having people that have the insulin monitors on their side that's hooked up directly to their pancreas, right? So I think, long story short, you were asking like, what can people actually do? The easiest way to do it is to understand, how do I actually manage blood sugar, right? And blood sugar comes down to what I'm consuming. Right? Because if you're eating a lot of processed foods, lots of sugar, lots of unhealthy fats, and you're not exercising, because that's the thing, right? You can eat a donut, you can eat pizza, but you either are going to store it or you need to use it. That's really the thing about it. And so I haven't gotten one yet, but I plan on getting one this month.
Tattoo?
Is a continued glucose monitor. Soon. If it's going to be a tattoo, it's going to be a tattoo of your face.
I knew that was coming.
But the continued glucose monitor, whenever you eat something, it actually tells you when your blood glucose rises above 100 milligrams per deciliter. And then you can either go for a walk or do a little bit of zone 2 or drink more water or do something that will help you bring your blood sugar back down to normal levels, which is really cool because you know it instantly. Sometimes you won't feel it, and that's where we eat too much and then we get that like sugar high and then we crash, right? That's just your blood glucose spiking and then coming down.
Do you think that's something that those patches are really cool, but do you think that's something that for someone who has been monitoring their own health long enough, you can almost do that without it?
That's a very good question. I don't know yet because I have not used it myself.
Like I would be fascinated to have that hooked up, right? Say I'm there and I collect the data for a week and I have you basically chart where you think your blood sugar is, because my hypothesis would be that it wouldn't be perfect, and I don't think you'd be guessing like the milliliters of blah blah blah, like that's not happening. Yeah. But I think you would feel enough to say, hey, I've talked to you plenty of times where you've come back from a weekend with family and you're like, yeah, dude, like I ate a lot, I feel off, I don't feel good, and you start to make these just very simple self-corrective practices. Like you go get an easy workout, you drink a lot of water, you clean up your nutrition pretty quickly. At what point do you think someone could do that even without getting a patch?
Yeah, I think a patch would be more just like, I think it's more of a behavioral correcting tool more than anything, right? Because what ends up happening is when you have something like, for instance, do you have an Oura Ring, Trevor? Have you used an Oura Ring before?
No, it's on my Christmas list though, so we'll see if Santa thinks I was a good boy.
Oh man. So I've used an Oura Ring for almost 2 years, and just by putting the ring on and seeing like the next morning what my what my sleep score was, how much deep sleep I got, I make different decisions the next day. And it's kind of the same thing with like the CGM monitor. You just make different decisions. Now, the problem is it depends on who is making those different decisions, right? If you are 200 pounds overweight and you have not made any changes inside of your lifestyle right now, you don't need a CGM monitor. You just need to start walking and eating whole foods and stop like just drink more water. Like you need to do the fundamentals. This is more for people that are like, hey, I've done the fundamentals. How do I actually get into more of a healthier state? That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think that's such a good thing to point out too, because I know when I got into the health space, gosh, 15 years ago now, which is kind of scary to say out loud. What drew me to it was, there's all these different things that you can do or study or be involved in where it's the same thing every day. I think health is so beautiful because of all the thousands and thousands of clients that I've had, every single one is different. And obviously there's that drastic example of, hey, if you're 200 pounds overweight, don't worry about all the bells and whistles. Like, dude, just go be slightly healthier because it's going to make a drastic difference. Whereas if you're on like the performance side of the spectrum, tracking your sleep in the Oura Ring or maybe even an 8 sleep or something along those lines, getting a CGM monitor, starting to, you start getting into things that are more like, to make that last 2 to 3% difference, you're going to probably need to get that level of data to make a difference.
It's very interesting. I don't know. I think part of me wants to say you're absolutely right. Part of me is that I think that like what you measure gets managed, right? And so I think like the fundamental pillars of health is like your nutrition, right? Your movement and your sleep. And then you could put recharge, and I put a lot of like recovery and stuff part of mental health. Mm-hmm. But like, how do you actually measure your nutrition? Well, one way to measure your nutrition is, or your metabolic health or your nutrition would be weight, right? Because if you're eating too much or eating too little, the weight will show it.
Right.
And so all of these things, and I think the delineation is that all of these things are just different forms of measurement. So you start weighing yourself, then you start tracking your calories, then you start weighing your food, then you start doing all of these different things, and then you're like, cool, well, now I want to see what effects carbohydrates has on my body. Well, now let me get a CGM monitor. So there's all these like rungs in the ladder. I was helping somebody get into the like the mode of weight loss. And they're like, what should I do? The simple thing is just start weighing yourself on a daily basis.
Yep.
That's it. You got to do nothing else.
Yep.
And you will start significantly losing weight. I think in my career, I've helped like 4,000 people lose weight from the gyms to online. Like the first step is just start weighing yourself. And then if you can't weigh yourself, then that's a different conversation that me and Trevor will have a different day,
sure.
Which is about fixing your relationship with how you see weight, why you're doing it, what's the mindset side of things, and all that good jazz.
Yeah, the beauty there is you and I have both worked with people on that, and it's not there's no one line answer that says, hey, like just go use a scale or something, but there are tactics to be able to fix that relationship. We've both done it with probably hundreds of people. It's if you're in the 1% of people that says, hey, I can't go do that, okay, that's another episode for another day. But for everybody else, there's really no excuse. If you do that every day, you are going to start noticing, okay, I see all of these inputs that went into my body yesterday, both with food, activity, sleep. Now I'm seeing the output. And you're going to start even just subconsciously creating these correlations between what you did and what the outcome was, because your health is really just a series of inputs and outputs. Know what went into your body, or know what you did with your body, and see what happened. And then just make micro corrections over time. Again, if you're weighing yourself every day, a lot of times those corrections will actually be subconscious. You don't have to think all that hard about it. But I am really curious, and I want to ask your opinion because I think mine changed in the last 10 minutes. If you could only track calories or blood sugar levels, which data would you rather have? Like you have to be able to live as the other. You don't get that data. Which data would you rather have?
Okay, I have a question. This is a good question. Is this subjective only to me, like what I would do or what I would recommend?
Oh man, you got me. I don't want to turn this into a 40-minute topic, but I'm curious to know how that would change your answer. So if we could look at both, so let's look at you first, but then maybe we can look at maybe a test client, somebody who's got say 50 pounds to lose.
Okay, so if it was personally for me, and the only reason I say this is because obviously we've been in the health space for a very long time. Once you get to a position where you're very healthy, what I've noticed is that a human being naturally will like resort to 7 to 10 meals on a regular basis. And you eat those same things over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I know how much protein I need. I know at what grams I need to be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I have all of these, like I have 4 meals for breakfast. I have 4 meals for lunch, 4 meals for dinner that we rotate between, right? Yep. Me and my wife. And so for me, like the data that's going to be the most helpful in me living longer, right, would be the CGM monitor for me to monitor my blood sugar, because I know what I'm going to eat consistently and regularly to maintain my current weight, right? Because I don't need to lose weight at this point. If I did lose weight, I just cut out a meal for, like, I can guesstimate weight loss and I'll pretty much be fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to blood sugar, and I think I'm just like leaning very heavily into this because I think it's just an underrated topic that people don't discuss, when it's like such a small tweak that people can make, which is just, hey, like, let me move more, and the food that I'm eating, let my body actually utilize it more, the fuel that I'm giving it. And it's not even just about like going to work out. It's just being cognizant of what you're putting in your mouth and how your actually body is utilizing it. So my personal answer would be that I would track my blood sugar.
So then let's say
More than
let's
my
say you've got a client. Let's say you and I are working with someone, and we know that if we are either going to fix their caloric intake or we're going to fix their blood sugar. And you know, we're not worried about whether or not they're going to stick with it. We're not worried about one being harder than the other or more difficult, anything like that. We're strictly looking at it and saying, hey, we're either going to fix this or we're going to fix that. Which would you rather fix?
Man.
And I can give you stats on the client. You know, his name's Dave.
Yeah, I need to know who Dave is, man.
Yeah, he's a park ranger in Yosemite. He's he's got a nice beard. He's 50 pounds overweight. He likes a beer on the weekends. What else? Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, he's just a normal guy.
Okay.
You know.
Does like Dave have prior knowledge to nutrition or tracking his food or anything of that sort?
No, nothing.
Okay. So then the first thing that I would do, like the basic generic thing, is just calories. Like I wouldn't even worry about CGM.
So and I agree, and I think neither of us would make that jump. But let's just say that we had the ability to like fix one for him permanently. Would that change your answer?
Well, he needs to lose 50 pounds.
Sure.
And him losing 50 pounds is actually going to significantly decrease his likelihood of getting a heart attack, of developing any type of metabolic disease or anything of that sort, right? You can fix blood pressure a little bit later. You can fix a lot of these things later, right? But like the thing you cannot fix is how his body processes. Because if he's 50 pounds overweight, he already is most likely insulin resistant. Like
Exactly.
Now, there are people who are overweight and they have no issues with insulin because it's kind of like a bathtub. They can hold a lot more like glycogen and stuff like that because everybody's body's different.
Yeah.
But
I mean, some of us are really tall like you, and some of us are, you know, short kings like me.
I know. It's just awesome stuff, dude. Some of us have mustaches. Some of them are brown.
Yeah.
Some of us are
and some of us,
purple.
yeah,
It's
some
all
of us are
good.
white like you. Yeah, no, I get it. I think the reason I asked that, and I want to see if I can kind of tease this out, is it's almost like a chicken and egg situation, because if somebody's overweight to that extent, you know, 50 pounds plus, they're likely having insulin resistance issues. On the flip side of that, right, if you were to take that person and fix their blood sugar problems, they're probably going to start losing weight. They're probably going to be eating at a more caloric. Like you can't overeat and fix somebody's blood sugar at the same time. I don't see a world where that's happening. So it's the reason why I asked is I was just kind of curious if we would kind of stumble upon that, almost like reverse engineer it. I think fixing one is likely going to fix the other.
I think a lot of it comes down to where the individual's actually at, right? So I don't think it's that black and white for me, at least, because when I do open up my health coaching practice back up again and start working with clients, I'm going to reintroduce blood work just to go like, hey, what do we actually need to work on?
Wait. Is this breaking news? Is Muhammad M. Malik taking on clients again? Are we breaking it here on the pod?
No, we're not breaking it here on the pod.
Oh,
Not happening anytime soon.
Come on.
But
just send me a Slack message. Tell me the dirty details offline. It's cool.
I will.
Okay.
I will. I'll send you the website and everything. You can go.
First client.
Join the waiting list.
It's just a $20K deposit to be in the waiting list, right? I'm in.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding.
it's actually 42, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I think it's like approaching it from a very like, because what ends up happening in the weight loss industry, and I think you and I both noticed this, people go into it with just like, I want to lose weight. Okay, awesome. And then because they don't think of like, why am I losing weight? Because it's always this like surface level thing of I want to lose weight. You lose weight and then you just stop. And so people don't even define how much weight they want to lose. They'll lose like 5 pounds and they're like, oh, I've lost weight because that's the kind of benchmark that they set. Versus, okay, why are you losing weight? Well, I want to live a long time and I want to have a better quality of life. That's a different thing because once you lose weight, well, there's other things that you can do to improve your quality of life. Right? So, long story short, to answer your question, Dave needs to just track his calories. And even if he doesn't want to track his calories and he's like, you know what? I'm not a techie person. You know, I don't like my phone. I don't like using nothing. Okay, well, just start weighing yourself, Dave. Because I guarantee you, you'll have one less beer on the weekend. You'll start eating less fries. And you'll just start making better choices because that's just what you got to do.
Yep. Like you said, what gets measured gets managed. So
that's it. That's it. So that's my stint about metabolic syndrome, Trevor. What do you want to talk about, brother?
Oh man, you mean the 6 minutes you left me? Let me see. No, this is good. It ties into a lot of the things that I've had on my mind this week. It's funny. For like 3 weeks in a row, I've started the week and said, hey, this is the week that I'm going to write. I think I've got a newsletter that I share a couple times a week on Mondays and Fridays, and each weekend when I do my battle planning, I've said, hey, this is going to be the week that I write my newsletter on GLP-1s, which are, that's, semaglutides, Ozempic. That's kind of the hot weight loss drug craze right now. And
what is that? I've heard of it. Like I heard of it on another podcast, but what, can you give me a rundown of what that is, man?
Oh man. So yeah, it's fascinating. I will say I'm gonna, this is going to be like a little teaser for next time because I have put probably a full newsletter of energy into it for like 3 weeks straight. And I'm going to probably do that for a couple more weeks because this is something that I don't think I've ever sat down and been so interested in something. I think I sat down thinking that this topic would be something. It's like, yeah, it's pretty cut and dry. Yeah, I think I kind of know everything there is to know about it. And it's like every day I sit down to do just a little bit more research, and it opens up like 10 new doors and 2 new like rabbit holes that I need to go down because the way these GLP-1s work is they were initially approved as drugs for type 2 diabetics. And they were helping with insulin resistance. And GLP-1 it's a hormone that we have in our body naturally. So this isn't the greatest example, but I think 20 years down the line, we're going to see these GLP-1 drugs similar to how today we see like taking melatonin. It's not like you're putting something that's incredibly foreign into your body. It's a hormone you already have. Now, that's not my ringing endorsement that you should be pumping hormones into your body.
It's kind of like when people do like testosterone therapy or stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's probably slightly better analogy. It's not like the gummy that I take every night that makes no difference in my body. Oh man, good thing I'm not doing this alone. I'd be be saying some things. Anyways, I think what's fascinating though, and where I kind of have taken a deep dive is. I think it's going to change the world, and not just from a health perspective, which it absolutely will because it already is, but I think from an economic standpoint, I think there's a chance that it begins a wave of healthcare reform. I also think there's a chance that not a damn thing happens, and that's what I'm finding the deeper I get into this. And I'm going to punt a little bit because I think this is going to end up being a teaser for the next one, but it is again, I don't think I can emphasize this enough. It is probably the most fascinating thing I've researched in the last 5 years. It is, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like,
so you just don't keep us hanging on the thing. What's so fascinating about it? Like the one thing that you found incredibly fascinating.
Can you think of anything else that people are putting in their body and they're actually losing weight and not like? I mean, people are taking these drugs and they're not really consciously making a lot of changes. I mean, they are, and we're going to talk about that. They are making changes, but they're not like consciously making a lot of changes. They're just taking a drug, and over 6 months, they're losing 20 pounds. Like, can you think of anything else that's legal that does that?
So, like, no lifestyle interventions whatsoever.
Oh, we're going to get to that. There's meat on the bone, I promise. But
oh, dang.
Yeah. But it's.
Oh, you're holding out, man.
Oh no, I have to.
You're holding out hard, dude.
The shot clock is ticking, and I'm shooting a half-court shot right now.
Oh man,
Yeah.
this is
And
gonna be
it's like
interesting. So,
rimming in. It's like, oh, it might go, and then it pops up, and it's on its
Oh,
way
no.
down, and then the pod wraps, and you have to wait until
Oh,
next time to see if it goes in.
well, I guess it'll be till next time.
That's the pod.
That's the pod.